higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God. As we go into this next song, you guys can be seated if you'd like to. Sometimes it seems like I'm coming undone. This walk can often feel lonely. No matter what, until this race is won, I will stand like God. Where hope can be found. I will stand like God. Where hope can be found. Oh, Lord, I know you hear my cry. Your love is lifting me above all life. No matter what I face, this I know in time. You take all that is wrong and make it right. You take all that is wrong and make it right. No strength is found at the end of the road. No place it reaches to the hurting. Still through the tears and the pressure and wine, I will stand up where hope can be found. I will stand up where hope can be found. Oh, Lord, you hear my cry. Your love is lifting me above all life. No matter what I face, this I know in time. You take all that is wrong and make it right. You take all that is wrong and make it right. I will stand my ground. I will stand my ground. I will stand my ground. Where hope can be found. I will stand my ground. Where hope can be found. Oh, Lord, I know you hear my cry. Your love is lifting me above all life. No matter what I face, this I know in time. You take all that is wrong and make it right. You take all that is wrong and make it right. Thank you.
Hello, dismiss the class, youth and children. If you have your prayer sheets, go ahead and take those out. Allison, do you have your prayer sheet? Oh. I got one. We'll just take a look at the prayer sheet first. Couple we want to mention. It's the Gotcha or the Gotcha family at the top of the bereavement section. That is the family of the 12-year-old girl that was killed yesterday on I-4. If you heard that story or heard about that, she was killed yesterday. Just continue to just pray for that family. I was the chaplain who had the task of letting the family know that their daughter had been killed in a car accident. so much for our time together. And we do pray for all of those that were involved in that wreck on I-4 yesterday. God, we ask that your peace would reign in those families. God, thank you for the God, your family's faith, even in the midst of hearing the worst news that they could possibly imagine. They still turn to you, and God, you were giving them just a sense of peace in the midst of that yesterday. And I just pray over the next couple of days as they go through the process that they'll be journeying, God, that you'll be with them. Be with those in our church and connected and known by people in our church that are battling cancer. It seems like that list could be a page in itself recently. God, we just ask that you be with them. Be with George Phillips. Thank you for the progress with the lung. We pray for continued healing there and for a good result from the biopsy. We just ask you to be with us tonight as we look into your word, and God, that we would learn about you and learn about who we are, and that we give you the glory. In your name we pray. Amen. We are starting a new series tonight, and so I'm glad that you're here. It's called Blended Faith, and you saw the little video. You know what, Brian? I don't think I sent you the video. It was included in the 2-minute video Sunday. That's why I'm sorry. That's my fault. I just didn't get it to you. Blended Faith. And I shared this story a little bit as I kind of talked about coming into this series. I've met so many people over the years, and I started talking to them in church, not just in hospitals, but in churches. And you talk to them like, oh, I used to be Catholic, I used to be Mormon, I used to be this. And they start talking, and there's this blendering of theology that doesn't go with each other. Okay? It's like, gasoline and matches don't go well together. And so they take a little bit of this theology, or, I had one lady, and she mixed Catholicism, Christianity, and she was from the islands, and a little bit of voodoo together. And then she would talk about how that was her Christian faith. And I'm going, no, that's not Christian. And so I met these people, and as if, some of us I've been a Baptist since I was, in the womb kind of thing. I've just always been Southern Baptist. So my understanding of other faiths comes from me learning and studying other faiths. But some of you have backgrounds that are in different faiths. You were Catholic, and now you're Baptist, or maybe you're Presbyterian, or you were Lutheran, or whatever your background is, and now you're sitting in a Baptist church, and as a Baptist, we believe certain things. And so I want us to I call it blended faith, and somebody came to me Sunday and told me there's no such word as blended. You can blender something, or you can blend something, but blended is not a word. That's why I coined the word. I coined it, so I get credit for it. It's blended faith. That is, we take a little bit of this. You saw the little video Sunday if you were here. I took a can of, I had labeled the cans different faith backgrounds or religions. And so there was a little bit of Christianity and a little bit of, Catholicism and a little bit of New Age movement. But I was mixing things that didn't go together. It was like chicken soup and fruit salad and red beans and corn. And then one of them was a little can of chilies. And I put them in the blender. And I can tell you, it stunk when I opened the top. And it went bloop. And when you watch the video next week, I'll have it next week. It just bloop like that. And then I poured it, and it stunk. And I didn't taste it, obviously. But the reason is because those things don't belong together. Okay? And so what I want to do over the next, it's about an 8-week series, I want us to kind of deconstruct some of the blended faith that we have so you understand, I believe, what the Scripture teaches about certain things. Okay? So that's where this series is coming from. And I'm going to do this by using 8 Christian sayings that sometimes we use. And they have such bad theology. Let me just take you back to yesterday. And it was an emotional day yesterday. I ended up leaving early because I couldn't deal with anything else. When you sit there and you cry with this dad, 36 on his birthday's today, losing a 12-year-old daughter the way he did and all that. And so we cried together, and we cried. I went to the office and cried and all that. So I'm in the room with the mom. The mom has just heard that her 12-year-old daughter was killed in a car wreck. And here's the nurse. she looks at the mom and says, quote, God only takes the strong. And I wanted to say, shut up. Don't say no word. But I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to start fighting with her. She then went on to say, God needed another angel in heaven. Shut up. And then to top it all off, she said, don't be angry at the truck driver. God came and took your child. And I want to go back to her and say, look, I'll make you a deal. I won't give an IV. I won't push pain medicines. I won't put a Band-Aid on a boo-boo. But don't you do spiritual care. Because you're making matters worse. But as I sat there, I heard all of these little sayings that we try to comfort people with that are so theologically wrong that in the end they'll do more damage. So instead of her anger, and she needed to express anger, it's an okay emotion. God gave us anger for a reason. It was okay to be angry at the truck driver. What the nurse was trying to get her to do was don't be angry at the truck driver, be angry at God. Now she wasn't wanting her to be angry at God, but she was taking the woman's anger and redirecting it to the wrong person. Okay? And so we're going to take some of these little sayings, and some of them you may have said. So don't be offended, just learn and never say it again. That's the deal, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. We're going to talk about why there's some wrong. And along the way, we're going to kind of pull in some other faith traditions and some other denominations, and we're going to expose maybe why they're good for them, but bad for us, okay? C.S. Lewis said this. I think it's the most great. I came up right in the middle of it. Christianity is a statement which, if false, is of no importance, and if true, is of infinite importance. The one thing it cannot be is moderately important. Okay? So, either it is important or it is not important. It just can't be so important. Christianity is. We're going to drive to we believe it's of infinite importance. For example, God cannot be both personal, as Christians, Jews, and Muslims believe, and impersonal, as Hindus and Buddhists believe. Okay, so Christianity, Islam, and Muslim believe God is a personal God. Hindus and Buddhists believe that He is an impersonal God. He can't be both, right? Jesus cannot be a false Messiah, as Judaism teaches, a prophet, as Islam teaches, and the Son of God, as we believe. He can't be all three of them. They go against each other. Those are what we call contradictory statements. According to the rules of logic, contradictory statements cannot all be true. Therefore, all religions cannot possibly be true. It is a logical impossibility. And if they are all not true, and if they lead us in different directions, then they all can't lead us to God. Isn't that what we hear now? And I've had a Hindu recently tell me, you can pray for me, we pray to the same God. Really? How can my personal God and your impersonal God be the same God? They can't both. So those statements contradict one another. So we're going to take these 8 weeks to kind of pick apart some of these cute little things that we try to comfort people with. And I'm not going to tell you what they are. I'm not going to tell you the other 7, so you've got to come back, and hopefully I don't offend too many people. We'll find out at the end of 8 weeks whether I've offended all of you. But we like to use them because they sound biblical. I mean, they really do. In fact, one of them, I read them to Debbie today in staff meeting, and she questioned me. She said, no, I think that was biblical. And I said, it's not biblical. She said, I think there's a Bible verse that says exactly that. So we found the Bible verse she was talking about, and she went, no, that's not biblical. Okay? So they sound biblical, so we think they're okay. And there was 9 of them, and one of them, I know you guys don't know it's biblical. You know it's not biblical, so I didn't go there. So here's the one for tonight. And you guys know this isn't biblical. And I'm going to start with an easy one. And here it is. God helps those who help themselves. It sounds like a positive statement. Like if you'll just try, then God will do something. It sounds more Joel Osteen in Scripture, by the way. If you'll do something, then God will just pour out His blessings on you. It is so theologically wrong. It's not even funny how bad wrong it is, okay? It is anti-Bible, and listen to me, it's anti-gospel, okay? The gospel. And I'm coming from a biblical, conservative worldview, Southern Baptist, born, bred, and raised. It is anti-gospel. It is not the gospel that we teach. Shane Stewart wrote this: self-reliance and self-righteousness, or the attitude of trying harder and doing better, actually gets in the way of the work of God. And see, this statement says, if you'll do more, what? God will do more. That's what it says. God helps those who help themselves. So if I do more, then God will help me more. And so we don't become reliant on God, we become reliant on ourselves. Okay, so let's start in Matthew chapter 16. You have your Bibles? Matthew chapter 16. And we're going to pick up in verse 24. And we're going to pick up in verse 24. But here we go. You with me? Matthew 16:24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself. You see where I'm going already, right? Because I just said this saying is all about the person. He says, deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? The other verse we're going to pull out at the end is 1 Peter 5:6 or 5:7. It's 5:6 and 7 actually, and it's on the screen. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you at the proper time, casting all of your care on him, because he cares about you. So we're going to look at those verses together. And I want to show you tonight 3 reasons why that statement of God helps those who help themselves is so wrong. And I hope by the end of tonight we all agree on one thing, that we're not going to say that to somebody else, especially in their time of need, okay? Number one reason why this is such a bad statement is this: it would make man the manager. It would make man the manager. In Matthew 16:24, we clearly see what Jesus expects of us, and it's this little phrase: he must deny himself. Okay? That phrase, God helps those who helps himself, puts the onus back on us. I can't deny myself if everything is dependent upon me. So if I want God's help, then I have to do. And so God becomes the reaction thing to whatever I'm doing. So it also becomes a light switch for us. Okay, and here's how that works. So I don't need God's help, so I'm okay right now. But all of a sudden I get to a point in my life and I'm like, oh, I need God's help, so what am I going to do? I'm going to move over. Well, that would have been much more effective. Turn on the light. There we go. I need God's help. So now I'm going to turn on the light. I'm going to do something because now I need God's help. God helped me. I don't need his help, so I'm going to turn the light back off. And so it becomes conditional on whether I need him or not, whether I want him in my life. That's not how God works, is it? Y'all look at me like I'm crazy tonight. Okay? Y'all should see yourselves in there right now. We have to deny ourselves. If I'm denying myself, then I'm not the manager, because I'm denying you. I said it right. To say that God helps those who help themselves puts us in charge of God's blessing and God's help. If I want God's blessing or my help, then I kind of have to start doing something for God. It becomes a works-based blessing thing. That if I want God's blessing, then I have to go do something. So then if I want his blessing, I will. If I don't, I'm okay. I'm okay right now. I don't really need God's blessings. I kind of got everything taken care of and everything's kind of smooth. But if I hit a hard time, I had a bad doctor's appointment, if I get a bill that I wasn't expecting, and now I need God's blessing, all of a sudden we begin to go do something. And we become works-based again. So if we want God's help, we have to do something. That's what that saying means. God helps those who helps himself. What we're inferring to somebody is, so go do something. Now, God doesn't want us to be lazy. He wants us to be active. He wants us to work. He wants us to do those things, but not as a condition to whether he blesses us or helps us or anything else. So we have to deny ourselves. Now, that word deny, it means to deny strongly. Actually, it means to reject something. Okay, so what are we rejecting? When we say we deny ourselves or himself, we make it personal. When I deny myself, what am I rejecting? I'm rejecting my will that's the idea here that Jesus talks about is denying. So let me give you some examples of people who denied self. In this statement, God helps those who help themselves would have absolutely failed these two guys. The first one is Jim Elliot. You probably know that name. Jim Elliot was the missionary who was down in Ecuador and he was trying to reach an unreached people group. And if you've ever seen the movie End of the Spear, this is the story of Jim Elliot. They found a way to land the plane on a really short runway. They couldn't land. And so they finally figured out a way to basically drop into the middle of Ecuador, land on a little beach, and then they were misinterpreted by the tribe, and the tribe killed Jim and a couple of his partners. Well, the story in the end was that Jim's wife didn't leave Ecuador. She stayed there. She made contact, and the entire tribe came to Christ because of that. If you want to see a great movie, great story, it's called End of the Spear. Well, Jim Elliot gave his life in Ecuador. Here's what he said. He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. Jim Elliot was denying self. It's like, I'm going to give everything away to gain something that I can't lose. What was the thing he couldn't lose? His eternal life. So he gave it all away. He gave comforts of America, and he gave all that, and ultimately he gave up his life. C.T. Studd is another guy. Just a long time ago, he gave up fame and fortune. He was a well-known man. He was going to be a famous person, and he said, I'm going to take the gospel to the tribes, to the pagan tribes. And here's what he said. I put this on Facebook earlier. Some wish to live within the sound of church or chapel bell, but I want to run a rescue shop within a yard of hell. He denied self and said, I would rather set up shop at the gates of hell. What was he trying to do? Keep people from going in. He gave up fame and he gave up fortune. Jim Elliot gave up his life. They both denied self. The saying, God helps those who help themselves, neither one of those two can apply. Because if it's true, if the statement is true, then God had to help both of them. God had to spare Jim's life, and God would have had to keep him rich and famous. Because they both did something for God. You see how that works? See how bad it is when you start thinking about it? What a bad theology. Well, what's Jesus calling us to do? I think he's calling us to do two things under this idea of man being the manager and denying self. Number one is to take up my cross. Now, it says in the scriptures, take up his cross, but we have to make that personal. Take up my cross. So what is my cross? I kind of mentioned this earlier. It's God's will for our life. It's different for every one of us. The cross we are called to bear is God's will, wherever that may lead. For Jim, it was the tribes in Ecuador. For C.T. Studd, it was leaving some, going to the pagans to share the gospel. Because here's the thing. You can't carry your will and his will. You don't carry one. Either you're doing what you want to do or you're doing what he wants you to do. You can't do both. Now, what we hope is that your will becomes his will in the sense that his will is overriding yours. And once you get to the point of going, God, whatever you want me to do, that's what I want to do. That's when your will becomes his will. It's in sync. But a lot of times it's not in sync, is it? We make our own choices, we make our own path, we'll veer off to the left, we'll go off to the right, and all that kind of stuff. And so many times, God's like, I just want you to stay right here. And we're like, but God, if I go over here and then I do that, it'll be quicker and shorter and all that stuff. And that's when our will comes into conflict with his will. But if we'll stay in his will, what happens is God begins to give us his heart. We're going to become like David, the man after what? God's own heart. God's own will for his life. God, whatever you want me to do, that's what I'm going to do. It's the idea of self-denial, which simply means putting God and his kingdom before us. And that is such a hard thing to do, isn't it? Putting God's kingdom before our own kingdom. Because we want to work, and we want to build, and we want to grow, and we want nice things and all that. But his kingdom comes first. So we're called to take up my cross. Secondly, we're called to follow him. Now, I love this. The word follow means to follow or accompany someone who takes the lead in determining direction in the route of movement. Okay? Now, this word goes a little deeper than normal, and it carries heavier on the idea of accompanying somebody. follow Christ, we become followers of desires and wishes. I'll work and I'll do, so God will give. That's not what the Bible teaches. Okay? Actually, what the Bible teaches, that God bestows upon us whether we really deserve it or not. That's the amazing thing about God, right? He gives whether we deserve it or not. And He gave His Son. And I'll read the verse there in just a minute. We'll get there. But God, as I mentioned, becomes a light switch. I want God's help, so I turn on the light switch. I want God's help, I'm going to do something. I don't need His help, I'm going to turn the light switch back on. And that's how we start to play the game. It's like God and a genie that I need Him, so I'm going to rub the genie bottle now. I'm done with Him, so go back in the bottle. Now, I know we don't ever do that, right? We don't ever bring God out when it's convenient and put Him away when it's not convenient. But that's what this saying really means. Now, this is one of those areas we're going to pull in some different denominations and religions. I want to do that now. This is one of those areas we differ greatly. I mean, drastically with other denominations and religions. Now, let me list some religions. Islam is a different religion than us. Okay? It's a different religion. That's religion and denomination. Let me talk about the difference real quick. Religions are complete systems of worldview different than us. Okay? Islam is not even the same camp as Christianity. It's a different religion. Okay? Hinduism, religion. Buddhism, religion. Okay? Mormonism is a different religion. Okay? Now, then we have denominations. Denominations are things like Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, Church of Christ. Catholics, if there's a gray area, Catholics are going to sit in the gray area. Okay? Some people might call them a different denomination, some people call them a different religion. We're just going to live in a gray area for tonight. Okay? Now, notice that I put Mormonism as a different religion. Okay? Mormons have worked very, very hard, and our society has pushed this narrative that Mormons are Christians. Okay? In fact, if you go look online and say, are Mormons Christians? Or your website that you find that says yes, you'll find a website that says no. Okay? Glenn Beck. Anybody listen to Glenn Beck? I love Glenn Beck, right? I agree with most of what he says. He'll tell you he is a Mormon Christian. Okay? If you talk to a strict Mormon and say, hey, you like Glenn Beck, they love Glenn Beck, because that's one of their own, kind of thing. But if you meet those two Mormons on the street wearing the white shirts and black ties and ask them if they're a Christian, they're probably going to tell you no. And they may have bought into this idea that Mormon and Christian are the same thing. They are not the same thing. I'm going to give you four things that differ here, so you know whether we're in a different religion or a different denomination. Okay? So let me back up. Religions are Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Mormonism. They focus on works and having to do things in order to earn favor with God. To be a good Muslim, you have to follow the 5 pillars of Islam. To be a good Mormon, you have to do your 2-year thing. You have to tithe religiously, like they check it, like you have to turn in your tax statements at the end of the year. And if you have not tithed according to your income, you write a check or you're out of the church. I mean, that's pretty tough, right? You have to do the 2-year mission thing. You have to have lots of children. That's a very important thing to Mormonism. Lots of things you have to do. Church of Christ, we would call them a different denomination. I always put them in a different religion group, and here's why. They believe baptism saves. In fact, if you know the Church of Christ Church down South Florida Avenue, about just past Dixieland area down there, a couple weeks ago I was riding my bike down there, and on their sign it said baptism, water baptism saves. They believe the act of baptism saves. The problem with that is where they're putting their faith. Are they putting it in the water, they're putting it in the preacher, or they're putting it in the act? Well, I don't want to put it in any of those. Okay? So where's our faith alive? Talk to me. Jesus, about that in the beginning? Islam and Christianity can't both be true. There's no way that the God of Islam and the God of Christianity are the same God because they're so different. Well, guess what? The God of Mormonism and the God of Christianity can't be the same thing. And close is Catholicism. I was reading today, and one of the catechisms, it talks about that we can become God in the Catholic thing. Now, most people believe that they think more of the idea that we become the children of God, but it's not spelled out, it's not defined there. So we have to be careful when we make statements like that we understand and use the right terminology. So here's 5 things that we have to believe to be Christians. So if you're like, I don't know if I'm a Christian, I met a lady the other day, she said, I believe in God, but I'm not a Christian. That's why would you say? She said, I believe Jesus is the Son of God. I was like, there you go. That's a pretty good reason to show you're not a Christian. So here they are. Number 1, there is only one God in all of existence. Thank you, Melinda. I'm so glad you're here from Mississippi. There's only one God in all of existence. Mormonism believes there's multiple gods. Okay? Right then, boom. Christianity and Mormonism can't be the same thing. Okay? There's only one God in all of existence. His name is Yahweh, or Jehovah, or Elohim. There's only one God. There will only ever be one God. Number 2, Jesus is divine. Okay? That is, Jesus is God. Us in Islam, we're opposed because they don't believe Jesus is God, do they? They don't even believe he's the Son of God. What do they believe he is? Just a prophet. A low-key prophet. Not even an important prophet. It's like, Malachi, Hosea, Jeremiah, Jesus, they're all the same. No. Christians believe that Jesus is divine. He is the Son of God. Okay, good. So, there we go. We have knocked Mormonism off the same pedestal, and we just knocked Islam off the same. These are the first 2. Number 3, forgiveness of sins is by grace alone without works. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to get the 5 pillars. Buddhism has the 8-fold path of peace. 8 things. Lord, I have a hard time remembering 3 things. 8 things, and you do all this. And the whole point of Buddhism is to work out the bad stuff and to eventually keep reincarnating. Okay, you gotta get all that bad stuff out to escape reality and get caught up into nothingness and cease to exist. That's the ultimate goal for a Buddhist. Reincarnation until you don't exist anymore. That's works. Here's the thing, Buddhists are nice people. Why are they nice? Because they can't have anger. That's one of the things that keeps them reincarnating. They can't have bitterness because that's what keeps them coming back and over again. Most of the time you'll find Buddhists are very nice. They're peaceful people. Why? Because they don't have anything else that keeps them coming back. They don't want to keep coming back. They don't want to keep going through it over again. So, there's only one God. Jesus is divine. Forgiveness of sins by grace alone. Number 4, Jesus rose from the dead physically. Okay, physically. This is important. A lot of people say that Jesus rose spiritually. So, when you talk to somebody and you go, I believe Jesus rose from the dead. I believe Jesus rose from the dead too. Physically? Well, not physically. Not literally. He rose spiritually. No. We as Christians believe that Jesus, in a physical body, rose out of that grave. The angels knew that thing, and he literally, step by step, walked out of that empty tomb. Okay? Makes us Christians. If they don't believe that, guess what? They're not Christians. Number 4, the gospel. The gospel. When we talk about what the gospel, because Mormons will have a gospel, and Jehovah's Witnesses have a gospel, and what's the gospel? The word gospel just means what? Good news, right? They got good news. Whatever they got good news. Our gospel is 3-fold. The death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's the good news that we have to tell people, right? That there's a God who sent his only Son, and he died, and he was buried, and he rose again. That's the gospel. Well, I don't believe that's what makes us different. We can't both be right. And if Mormons say that there's multiple gods, and we say there's one God, how can both of those paths lead to the same destination? If Islam says that you got to keep 5 pillars That's fine that you believe that, but understand this, it's impossible. The God of Islam, the God of Christianity cannot be the same God. They cannot pray to the same God, nor is there the same destination. It just can't be. And so, Christianity is Christ-centered. Every other religion we just mentioned becomes man-centered. Islam is man-centered. I have to do. Even Methodists get into a lot of works-based stuff. I'm not saying they're works-based for salvation, but they have a lot of works. Islam is works. Mormonism is works. Hindu, you have to be, or Buddhist, you have to be nice, and this works-based. Everything's become centered. Your salvation is centered on what you do. God helps those who help themselves. It's centered on what we do. And that's what makes it, first point, false, is that we become the manager. Secondly, it would make worldly possessions matter. Worldly possessions would then matter. So if your statement is true, then the things of this world matter. But Jesus said kind of the opposite. He said, what will it benefit a man if he gains the whole world but yet loses his life? Or what will a man give in exchange for his life? This takes us back to God being some form of works-based benevolent God. Because then if I want something, then I have to do something and God gives it. So then who earned it? I did. Or at least I caused it. And so therefore God helped me, but it's kind of my thing. And all of a sudden I got that because I did and God helped. And all of a sudden those worldly possessions begin to matter. And Jesus said, what does it matter that you gain all that stuff? The New King James uses the word soul there. The HCSB uses the word life there. You can argue both words right there. To lose your soul is to lose eternity. To lose life means that you become absorbed with getting things in this life. And if all we are doing is getting things in this life, then our life becomes centered around things. And in a sense, we lose life, don't we? You sure can't take things with you. There's a story of a man, an old miser, an old man. He had lots and lots of money. He never gave any of it away. He told his wife, when I die, you better put every dime in that casket with me. I'll take it with me. So, sure enough, man dies, and the woman shows up at the funeral, and her girlfriend's there, and she says, you didn't do. She said, I loved him. I know he was a stingy old man, but I loved him. She said, did you really put all that money? She said, yes, I did. I took every dime out of his checking account, I put it in mine, and I wrote a check, and I stuck it in the casket. Listen, every dime is in there. When we become works-based, then God becomes a benevolent God that we control. You see, all of a sudden we become the guy in charge. We're doing everything. So if I want God's help, I have to do something. But we have to ask ourselves the question, what is it worth? The word life here, it means your inner self, your mind. It's like people go crazy over the things of this world. You ever see that? I mean, they'll do just, you look at a lot of crime. A lot of crime happens because somebody wants something that they don't have. So what do? They either steal it, or they steal the money to buy it, or they kill the person to get it. How many times have you heard about kids killing their parents because the parents have money, the parents wouldn't give more allowance, or whatever it was. It makes you go crazy. It makes you do stupid things because we're focused on things, because that's what we're focused on as a society, is those things in life. And when we talk about God helps those who help themselves, that means if I'll do and I'll get, if I want, then I just have to do it for God and God will give it to me. God isn't like Santa Claus sitting up there going, well, just work a little bit and I'll give you what you want. That's not how it works. It's like the little ladies on TV. That's not how any of this stuff works. Love that commercial. So we spend all of our time doing so we can get so God will help. Well, that's kind of a vicious circle. What's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over again and get the same result. Expecting this different result by getting this. That's insanity. Where all we're doing is working and working and working to get and to get and to get. And if we'll do, then God has to help. Like it's a condition. God helps. Look at God helps those who help themselves. Really? So God's on the hook for that? Like if I do, God's required? Like God's up there going, well, I want to help that, but he's doing so much good. I guess I have to help him out. That is in 6 days, but I don't know. But you know what I learned yesterday? Those things that I work so hard for mean nothing. What mattered when I'm sitting there talking to that guy yesterday in the hospital. The only thing I kept thinking about was I just want to girl. I got home yesterday and I said, I'm going to go for a bike ride before the kids get home. Because I was so emotional, I didn't want to lash out with anger or anything. I wanted just to kind of burn off a lot, not too much energy. So I went and rode about 13 miles yesterday afternoon. Came back in and it's a mental picture. I got my spandex bike shorts on and I got this shirt on. I'm sweat. I mean, this sweat's pouring off of me. My bike helmet sweat's coming down. My shirt's soaked in sweat. My socks are soaked in sweat. And I see my daughter. I was like, please give me a hug. And she went, ew. I said, you have to give me a hug. She goes, you have to get a shower. I was like, I'll be right back. So I went to a quick shower and I said, now can I have a hug? See, all the worldly possessions didn't matter yesterday. When you tell a 36-year-old guy that his 12-year-old daughter was killed, got quick in a car accident, worldly possessions just don't matter. And I'm just so thrilled that they were such a strong family of faith. But every 5 minutes that just, he looked at me, he'd come over and hold his wife, say, are you doing okay? Do you need anything at all? She said, I'm going to go right over here. I'm going to go right here. And he'd go over there, right there in the middle of the hospital room. And he's like, just bowing down before God. Now, how many times I saw him do that? And he stood up there, but I got to tell you, FHP, the whole separation of church and God thing. FHP officer comes in, and he goes over this stuff, and he's having to identify the car and all that stuff. What kind of car were you in, and who was in the car, where's everybody sitting, all that stuff. So he finally says, ma'am, Mr. and Mrs. Scott, I'm very sorry to tell you on behalf of the Florida Highway Patrol, your daughter did not make it. She passed in the accident. That was official telling me what happened. And so they begin to weep again, and this FHP officer takes off his hat, and he steps up and he says, can I pray with you? And they said yes, and I was like, dude, I'm standing before God tonight. He bows his head and he says, dear Heavenly Father, and he prayed in Jesus' name. I thought, man, thank you. Thank you that somebody doesn't care in that moment. They don't care about what the church and the state and separation and all the craziness in our world. What matters is a broken family. And that FHP officer knew. He didn't see that guy pray. He had never seen that guy pray. The whole time he was in there, that father stood next to his wife, holding his wife's hand, while his son sat in a wheelchair on the other side because we brought him over from pediatric unit to sit all in the same room. And they're all sitting there together. This FHP officer says, let me pray. Can I pray with you today? And he began to pray in Jesus' name, ended in Jesus' name. And I was like, praise God. It didn't matter what a car or anything else we have in that moment. So what have we gained? We've gained worldly possessions if that's what we're doing. But what have we lost? We've lost eternity. That's what we lose when we work so hard to gain here. True discipleship involves following Christ and doing His will wherever that path might lead. Whether it's Ecuador or North Lakeland or Mississippi or wherever that is. In verse 26, Jesus uses the word gains and losses. This is interesting. We'll fly by it. We're not careful. It says, well, for what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Both of the words in the Greek are in the past tense. It's a better reading to read it this way, is that he may have gained the whole world, yet lost his soul. See, here's the problem. If we're not careful, if we don't understand what's going on in the text, who helps themselves. Worldly possessions matter because it's what we have that makes all the difference. The third thing, and let me quickly move through it, is this. And here's the saddest one. It makes the cross meaningless. It makes the cross meaningless. If God's grace and help and compassion are based on our work, then we'll never do enough for God to say, okay, you get grace or you get compassion, right? I mean, if God's help, God helps those who help themselves. If God's help is His grace in our lives, we need grace, right? Or His compassion, we love His compassion, right? How about His mercy? We like mercy? Mercy is not getting what we deserve. We all like mercy, right? If that's God's help, then His help is determined on what we do. So I get grace because of what I've done. I get mercy because of what I've done. I get compassion because of what I've done. Where's the cross in all that? See, the cross becomes meaningless. If this statement is true, what's the purpose of the cross? Because everything's contingent about what I do, not about what Christ did. You see how absolutely, we've destroyed that statement tonight, haven't we? Because the cross is important. Amen? Somebody? Peter writes it this way, a couple of verses. Humble yourselves, therefore, right at the beginning, under the mighty hand of God, so that He may exalt you. Who does the exalting? God does. But when we work, what do we normally like to do? We exalt ourselves. He may exalt you at the proper time. Not when you want to be exalted, not when you want to be lifted up, but at the proper time. Casting all your care on Him. We're going to come back to this verse in a couple weeks with another statement that we like to use, because this verse blasts that one big time, because He cares about you. See, look who's doing the caring. He is. What are we to do? We're going to give everything over to Him. He'll exalt you. Paul, if we do the work, we exalt ourselves. Here's how Paul said that. For you are saved by grace through faith. And this is not from yourselves. It is God's gift, not from works. Does it get any plainer than this? So that what? No one can boast. Because if I work and get God's blessings, guess what I get to give credit to? Me. Look what I made God do. Because I worked, God was on the clock because of me. That ain't how it works. And if we take the statement back far enough, then God sending His Son would have been because man had done so much stuff that God decided to help. Oh, man has done so much. God said, Jesus, I didn't want to send you, but look how much they've done for me, and I'm going to have to send you because I told them that if they'll do something, then I'll help them. We know God actually sent Christ to save us from what? Somebody tell me. Ourselves. Because what do we normally do? Left to our own devices, we destroy ourselves. We destroy other people. We destroy the world. God sent Christ to save us from ourselves. And this comes down to whether we are grace-based or work-based. And that's why this sentence is so wrong. Because it is a works-based statement. And we are not a works-based faith. We are grace-based. It does not matter if those works are church-related or salvation-related. Well, I'm going to work in the church, so God will bless me. It doesn't matter. You can work every vacation Bible school the rest of your life. You can clean the kitchen after I cook every Wednesday night. That ought to earn you something from God, but it doesn't. Okay, I'm sorry. I ain't going to clean the kitchen. Thank you, but sorry about your luck on that one. Listen, you can do everything in the church. Doesn't mean God is on the hook to do anything for you. Here's why. Here's what makes it so beautiful. God has already done enough for us. He never has to show grace again. He never has to show compassion. He never has to meet another need. He will, but He doesn't have to because He did enough listen, God helps those who helps himself. So, no, brother. No, just listen to me. God helps me whether I do anything or not. He helps me by sending his son to die on the cross. And all I have to do is accept that. It has nothing to do with what I do. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, God, we thank you so much for tonight. God, I thank you for who you are and what you do, but more importantly, for what you did. And because of what you did on the cross, we have life, we have hope, and we have purpose. And God, we can face the challenges of life because of what you did for us. In your name we pray. Amen. Real quick announcement. You're probably wondering why I have a chair sitting up on the stage tonight. So let me explain to you why I have a chair sitting on the stage tonight, and then we'll be out of here tonight. If you can help tomorrow morning in the fruit market and the USDA, we are desperate. All of our normal workers are not available tomorrow. We are drastically desperately needing some people. So if you can help in the morning about 8:30, we can get you to train real quick to work. We got a phone call about, 2 weeks ago or so, and there is a church that is donating 250 of these chairs to us. They are lacking sanctuary chairs, counting on the bottom and the front. They are free, which is our favorite price around here. And so the idea is we have a number of pews that are breaking. This is broken, that one's broken, the third one's broken. One back there has come out of the floor. One over there, I think that one's broken, that third one's broken. We are thinking and moving toward replacing the pews with these chairs. Couple of things. Number one, if you break a chair, you can replace a chair while using replacing a pew. Number one, seeing that the pews are much more expensive. Number two, these are versatile. We can take out the first 3 rows for Vacation Bible School and just have a nice big area for the kids to do their motions and movement and that kind of thing. We can keep it cleaner. We can take all the chairs up, sweep up, wax the floors, do all that kind of stuff, but we cannot do that with the pews. It's just very, very difficult. So, we are picking them up either the 8th or 9th of July or the 17th of July. Depends on whether they get them. The church that we're getting them from is buying new ones, and they are giving away all of their old ones. And we reserve 250 of them. 168 will go in here. Debbie's room will get new chairs. Dave's room will get new chairs. And the youth room will get new chairs. And we'll get rid of the brown ones that are all taped up and ripped and falling apart. Those will be removed. And I know that I didn't donate those. Those things are falling apart. And so that will kind of clean up a little bit. And we will be looking for a church that can use pews. The problem is most churches now, guess what they're doing? Going to chairs. So we've got to figure that one out. So that's the idea. Any questions about this? If you have any concerns or questions, please see me or Tom knows about it as well. It's an opportunity we have that if these chairs, they're buying, when they bought these, they were $50 a chair. The new ones they're buying, they have to come down in price to like $32 a chair. It's a chunk of change that we don't have, and we've already had some issues with the pews. This one's already been fixed twice in the last year. So we feel like it's maybe an opportunity for us to make a move on these and get it done. So yes, and this is a sample. So come by and sit in it tonight. They're close to the same color, which is really interesting, a little bit lighter. But we want you to come by and sit in it and see what you think. I can tell you, at Lakeland Acres, we had pews, we had a mixture. I finally got rid of the pews, and some people were like, well, you can't get rid of the pews. And I said, would you just try the chairs? And I'm just going to sit in the pew. And I said, okay, sit in the pew. And I had 2 left. Well, one Sunday she came in, we had some visitors, and there was no rooms in the pews. So she had to sit in the chair, and I tried not to smirk when I was preaching. And so at the back door that day, she said, preacher, that chair was really comfortable. I was like, okay, I'm glad you liked it. She said, we can go ahead and get rid of the pews. And I was like, okay, because they were leaving this week. So we ended up working all the pews out. So we want you to come by and sit in it. If you have any questions or concerns, see me. And but I think it's an opportunity that we can't pass up at this point. So anyway, anything else? 7 o'clock on Monday night. We're going to be going over all the details of the trip. I'm going to introduce all the parents to all the adults that are going and all that kind of stuff. The van is leaving here at 6, or you can meet us there at 7. I'll be down there all day. I will get you a ride. I'll find you a ride somewhere. So, can you swing by and pick her up and bring her when you come? Oh, where are you staying? Oh, you can swing her by?